get rid of your text.
Oh yeah, let's get rid of that too. Bloop. Let's get that. Make that fucking... Boom. Hi, chat.
I can see my house from here. I mean, my text from here.
Okay, so basically, to summarize most of this post, and you should read this post if you... Well, I definitely went to look on my other monitor for chat to post that. So the basic story of what happened is GGG has sold a majority share of the company to Tencent. Now, that majority share, it came out a little bit later, is actually 80%, not the 51% that people assume you mean when you say majority share, but that is irrelevant. People who are focused on that ignore it. It's functionally irrelevant. If you own 80% of the company or 51% of the company, your power is the same. You have a majority share, that is it. That means you've got the majority. You can call the shots, you can override everyone else. That is the reality of a majority share. It doesn't matter how much more than 51% you have, right? So the fact that it's 80% doesn't really affect us in any way at all. What is important, and I couldn't find the old shareholding list, which was also public. So if anyone knows how to go backwards in time on the internet and find it, that would be great. Find it for us so I can get the exact numbers right. This is now how the shares in GGG looks. It is 80% Tencent.
There's a show history thing at the bottom.
Is there? Right, hang on. For now, it is 80% Tencent, 13.17% Chris, and 3.14 to Jonathan and Eric. So the split between these three is the same as it always has been, but Tencent now owns 80%. Here's the archive. Right, now, this is an improvement because... Who is it? One of the people on this list who owned a decent amount. One of the people, I don't remember which one. One of the people who owned a decent amount was also running an RMT website. Now, GGG wasn't aware of that at the time when they sold a small share of the company to that person. Internet and Reddit have speculated to what RMT website he ran. It's functionally, it was Matthew? I forget who it was. That person, they didn't know when they sold a share to him that was part of what he did. Like that was part of his thing. And it was how he made a majority of his money. It was how he was able to afford it to begin with. Now, he's gone. Right? His shares were bought out as part of this deal. So, I'm going to call that an overall improvement because we've lost the RMT guy out of owning the company. Right? So, be aware of that. That's a thing that has existed for a few years now and was public information that anyone could have looked up. Hey, Top.
At what point did GGG realize that particular piece of information?
Reddit informed them soon after the information went public. They did not know at the time. So now we've got the discussion of what does this mean for GGG and Path of Exile moving forward? Now, according to their post, and I'm inclined to believe it, it will have no effect on the direction of the game. Tencent should have no input on how the game is designed or developed from here out. Now, there are reasons to believe that is the case. I'm a little bit iffy on exact details, so I'm going to try and be as general as I can. Tencent owns fucking everything to start with. They're a 580, I think, billion dollar gaming company. They own Riot Games, League of Legends. They own what else do they own? PUBG. They own, oh shit, there's another really big one. So, anyway, the point is, they own Fortnite now too, yeah. The point is, they own a lot of things that aren't computer games. 40% of Epic Games, they own Tankeels, not 50. They don't own a majority share in Epic. Anyway, the point is, there's a lot of non-computer westernized games that they have bought and not done this deal with, where they have bought and they have taken over the title. And when they take over a title, and Tencent themselves have admitted they don't really understand the Western market, and they have ruined quite a few games in the Western market by putting in RMT things and putting in cash shops that have actual power items and things like that. And that is a big thing that works really well in the Chinese market. And that is where they flourish and where they make most of their money. But when they have bought companies like when they bought Riot Games, or a majority stake in Riot Games, they made the handshake agreement to not get involved in their westernized version of the game. What they want power over, and what they already had power over within GGG, is how the game is deployed in China. And they were already in charge of that. We already had a deal with them. It's already a different client. It has to be, games in general have to be changed to meet the cultural needs of a Chinese environment that I'm not 100% familiar with because I'm not from there. But to my understanding, there are certain things like zombies and ghosts that are just not really allowed to be in a game. So they have to adjust. They have to change things. They have to do things differently there. And they're very, very successful in the Chinese market. They do know what they're doing. But they have shown us repetitively that when they buy out a large gaming company and agree to not fuck with them, that they don't. They are very notorious for being hands-off. They only buy things that they already see succeeding and that they want to continue to succeed. That is what they've done. And a lot of people, and I can see it in chat, are being like, not this, I've seen it in Reddit as well and on the forums in the quick looks that I've been, people saying, oh, but Tencent doesn't care about us as players. It's probably true. But what they do care about is money, and they only buy things that are already successful, and they're smart enough to not fuck with it. It is in their best interest to let the GGG team continue doing what they're doing, but with more money. Because it's successful, it's growing, it's making them a lot of money in China already, and they're still heavily reliant on GGG and the team from New Zealand developing all of the content, because they're not developing the game over there, they're only making the changes needed, right? Like, I hear you and the GGG post says Tencent, but I don't see any proof of the concept. But we do see proof of the concept. We do, because they have bought much larger companies than GGG in the past and not touched them. The largest example is League of Legends, which is Riot Games. They own a majority share in that. They bought it, I want to say 2013, but I feel like I'm making that up. I don't remember the date, but they bought it when it was relatively popular, but not quite as big as it is now. And they didn't lay a finger on it, and they haven't to this day. They just continued to let Riot Games operate independently and continued to take a share of their profits. Officially trashed, that is not something that has anything to do with them. That's something Riot Games was already doing. 2011. That's something Riot Games was already doing. They already had that model set up way before Tencent bought them. There are other examples that I can't remember right now. I need to do way more research to have proper data. But it always makes you scared when a country so what I'm worried about, passwords in the beginning, they don't change the model to something paid when because it's not that big and enough people care. I want Yeah, but trash, yes, they have viable resurrections in hardcore. And if they didn't, the game would have failed.
That's there because that's what's going to make it work in a Chinese market.
Yeah, the entire Chinese market expects to be able to do stuff like that. And if you're not able to do stuff like that, your game will fail. That is their market. They know what they're doing in China, and it is a very, very different market from the rest of the world. And they have no interest, and they have never had any interest in forcing their changes on a developer they have bought. They like for developers to keep developing their games the way they want, and they make whatever changes they need. Because of this, their team in China for game development is far smaller than you would imagine for how much they own, because they don't actually develop any of the things they buy. They only need a team big enough to understand each thing and alter it for the Chinese market. They didn't make that change and develop it outside of China? Yep. Tencent has agreed to only play with the Chinese market. Or probably. Yeah. Now, here's another thing that I think is important to look at. Chris Wilson himself and Jonathan and the other guy who I can never remember his name. This is their little brain baby, especially Chris Wilson. This is his brain baby. We have seen him in many, many interviews, and he has, Eric, that's the one, thank you. He has always been open, direct, and honest with the entire community more than any other game or any other developer I have ever seen. He tells us way more than any other developer has ever done. And he has always made moves that he believed was best for the game, not for him. And I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt of saying this is the best move for his company and his game. And he trusts this is the way that he's going to make it the best he can possibly make it.
Yep.
During Bay class, Bess was addressed as a she. Bex is a she. What do you mean? Again. Alright, so next point, and the thing I saw other people complaining about was people were saying things like, well, I'm just not going to give them, I'm not going to buy a supporter pack anymore, because if 80% of my supporter pack is now going to Tencent, I don't want to support Tencent, I want to support GGG. That's not how money works. So to be more, sure you can. So to be more specific, hang on, let me do a thing. Right here.
Oh no, a thing.
I duplicated chat on my second monitor so I can open links off stream.
Yep.
In case, and then drag them on if they're okay. Right, so two things about that. One, if you don't think the supporter packs were good value for what you were getting in them, and you were buying them anyway just to support GGG, you were doing the wrong thing to begin with. Because they can always add more or lower the prices. And if they weren't good enough in your eyes, you shouldn't have bought them to begin with. So, one, you were doing the wrong thing. If that's the only reason you were buying them, you shouldn't have been buying them. Voting with your wallets is a thing. But two, 80% of the profit does not equal 80% of what you pay. The profit of a company like that is far lower than their intake of money. So if I lower that to say, to make people understand, let's just say, we'll pick a nice round number like $100. Let's say GGG made $100 a month. Obviously, it's going to be way more than that, but 100 is a nice round number we can talk about. When we talk about a profit, that the company probably only made $5 profit when they earned 100. And you'll find that $40 went back into development of the next things that are happening and whatnot, and $15 went into just general maintenance of the machines and upkeep they had to do, and then what have I got left? $40 went into whatever's left, went into paying all of their employees and make sure everyone's got their wage and their super and all of that sort of shit. So when the exact numbers, I don't have access to their books, I don't know, but general practice and a generally accepted thing is that you will make somewhere between 2 and 5% profit. That's what most companies aim for. We're talking about 2 to 5% of the money that you give GDG is actual profit. The rest of it is invested back into the game or spent in upkeep. That is what most companies do. So, yeah, when you buy a supporter pack now, sure, Tencent's going to get 80% of the profit, but 98% or 95% of that product you bought is spent on improving and maintaining the game we enjoy, paying its employees, things like that. So you're not actually giving Tencent barely anything. If you're going to buy a supporter pack, all the profit goes to GG at the end of the physical year, 80% of it. Yeah, no, I'm aware. I'm aware that it won't be weekly or monthly or whatever. So what is the motive to buy 80% of PoE and Chris's motive to take the deal? Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not involved in the deal and I'm not Chris.
Wait, you're not Ziggy D? You don't know everything that's going on at GGG?
Ziggy D didn't know about this. He found out when everyone else did. So, obviously, anything I say on that is speculation, and from my point of view, with only the information I have, which is very limited, and the same information you have. But, in saying that, I'll still give an opinion, because I love giving my opinion on things. So,
oh boy, you...
right? So, what is the motive to buy 80% of PoE, and what's Chris's motivation to take the deal? So the motivation to buy 80% of PoE from Tencent's point of view as a company that mostly only cares about profit is what we've basically all agree on. Tencent is a very large multi-billion-dollar company. They care about profit, not us. That's fine. What's their motivation to buy 80% of PoE? From their point of view, PoE and the Chinese port of PoE that they've already been running has been very largely successful in a genre that doesn't have any other notable competition right now. They are miles in front in development cycles and just coming up with new ideas and all sorts of things. They are miles in front of. They're running this game better than any other game has ever been run in the history of gaming, as far as I'm concerned. At least from my point of view. They're coming out with new stuff at a quicker rate than anyone else does, and it is all pretty damn good quality. From Tencent's point of view, the question is, what could these people who are very successful do with a lot more money? If we funded them, could this become so large that it is a decent piece of our pie? And they have, in my opinion, decided yes, it can be that big, it is that good. We need to invest in this company to make sure that they can develop the best possible product that can exist, that they can do. And by part of that, yes, they're going to get the profits as they succeed, but it also means they're going to be able to port all the new things they do over to the Chinese game, and they're going to be able to make tons more money in the Chinese market as well. The better the game is for us, the more stuff we can do, the more stuff GGG can give us, the more stuff they have to port over to the China area, and that is all more and more profits. So as with any investment, you are always, and I stress this, always taking a risk when you invest in anything. They've decided this is a risk worth taking. We would like to invest. We will take the risk. Give them a buttload of money and see how good it can become. Chris's motivation is going to be for the same reasons. Because he's got ideas and he's got plans and he's got a team, and he doesn't have enough money to make everything he's got in his head a reality. And taking their money gives him the freedom to do so. It gives him the freedom to try more and more things, hire more of the right people, just make the game better and better and better and better.
Yeah, with regards to those comments, shall I just read out 2 of the bits of the article you've got on the screen right now for people?
Sure. I love it when you read, and I do too, so go ahead. Wait, which one is it so I can bring it on the screen?
The one you've already got up, part of the second comment and the 4th comment.
Mm-hmm.
We have been approached by many potential acquirers over the last 5 years, but always felt that they didn't understand Path of Exile or that they had other agendas, like signing users up to their services. Tencent's agenda is clear: to give us the resources to make Path of Exile as good as it can be. And then slightly further down, will Tencent try to change Path of Exile? No. We spoke to CEOs of other companies that Tencent has invested in and have been assured that Tencent has never tried to interfere with game design or operations outside of China. We retain full control of Path of Exile and will only make changes that we feel are best for the game, which basically summarizes the points that have been made so far from that regard.
So it's a win-win for both parties, yes, and it's a massive win for us as consumers, because they've got a lot more money to play with, which means they can hire more people. They can do more things. They can keep working on the leagues like they have been, and they can hire another 10 people to start working on the sort of fixes they don't have time for because they're not new content. The sort of things like, working on guilds and making them better, being able to click things out of the guild stash, having custom leagues or group self-found little mini leagues and races. All
the stuff that they want if they have the time and the manpower, but isn't what keeps them on the every 3-month schedule.
Yeah, that those sort of things we've all wanted them to do for a while as a community, but that's not what makes them money. That's not how they get more money, and they need more money to succeed. They need to keep bringing in people and putting out supporter packs and making all this money, otherwise they can't stay a company. They go broke. So they didn't have as much time as they wanted to work on those back-end things that were less important for money making but would be great for quality of life. The company becoming larger has proven never to be good in the long run. That sounds
like a Balor kind of statement where you take everything to an extreme.
Right, that's just not true. And not even remotely close to provable. You could give me an instance in which that happened, and then I could do some research and give you an instance in which that hasn't happened. This is down to each individual company and the way it's run. Not something you can just make a sweeping generalization of and actually be right. No further development of extra GG will have been in the contact. We'll see you. I'm confident Chris has chosen the right route for knowing exactly what it is. Even a second free whatever risk. Yeah, Disco Steve, that's right. Chris Wilson is in love with this game more than any of us are. Mm-hmm. And I can play this game 16 hours a day every day for the next fucking 3 years and still not be bored of it. Chris Wilson loves this game more than I do. I don't think he would have sold. I think Chris Wilson would have sold his house and car to keep the game alive if he thought that selling and letting Tencent invest would harm his game and he needed more money. He wouldn't have done it. He just wouldn't have let it go. I can understand all the business, but we lose that romantic feeling of support directly to an indie company more than 1K so far.
Agreed, and I think that's the source of a lot of the knee-jerk Reddit type reaction.
Yeah,
it's just corporation, not indie.
Yeah, I understand that, and that is a concern. It is still. I mean, they're still going to act and behave and be the size of an indie company, but you're right. The profits now are going to a large multi-billion-dollar corporation for the most part, and those profits, that 80% profit, is not going into Chris Wilson's pocket, which is where we wanted the profit to go. However, it's important to understand that the idea of a deal like this is that $100 a month they were making becomes 500, 600, 700, 800. Excuse me. Bit of semen. Right, it becomes, $1,000 a month. Or, like, it should have exponential growth. That is what they're after. That is why you invest in something, to see it grow. So it could, and we hope, end up with... Is it Eric? Jonathan and Chris? The three people? I keep forgetting his name. It is Eric. Good. We could end up seeing them have actually quite a bit more money, because the 20% they're collectively taking is larger than the 60-something odd percent they used to own, because the size of the pie is bigger. Right? So, yeah, I get how the feeling of not really supporting an indie developer is going to be a problem, but in reality, with your money, you are still supporting the GGG team. You are still supporting the same people. It's nothing in that regard has changed except how it feels, which is still a valid point and a valid problem, and probably the biggest hurdle they're going to have to overcome. I buy packs to get the MTX supporting GGG as a nice side effect. See, and there, what Shinra said is what I said earlier. If you were buying supporter packs when you thought they were shitty value, but you were doing it just to support GGG, you were not voting with your wallet, which is the most important thing to do as a consumer. If you didn't buy the packs because you thought they were shit value, then GGG would have made them better value. Right? They would have made them better value. They would have lowered the price or added more things in until they were good value. That's just how you have to play it. Does Tencent invest in streamers? I have absolutely no idea, but if they do, it would be Chinese servers from the Chinese site. I want to say yes. In fact, the more as I'm thinking of it right now, definitely yes. Absolutely yes. They hosted that international race event. They put up the cash prize, and they wanted it held between both the Chinese players and the international players so we could all get involved. And that was Tencent's doing before they bought a share. And that is a huge support to streamers, really. So if they do stuff like that, then yes. Economy lately, they've expanded. Going profitable, reasonable. Finally fix all the log of quality of life improvements. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. They viewbot all the games they have shares in. I don't know anything about that.
That's entirely possible, but also wild speculation.
Yeah. And also, even if that is true, that is something that would have to do with the Chinese market, and they would not get away with that on Twitch. Twitch regularly shuts down most botting sites. It's not going to be a concern for us in the Western market. Someone said on Reddit that the MPX prices should drop down. What do you think about that? Before the sale happened, before I knew about this, I already thought MTX prices were too high. So, do I think they should drop? Yes. It's got nothing to do with this sale. Yes, Config, you are right. Now, well, you might be right. First of all, we haven't and won't ever see the actual contract that was signed. Now you can write into the contract that they're just not allowed to interfere, but I've never heard of anyone doing that, because that's a really dumb decision to make. I know in the past that when they have made those deals, they have simply said, we have no interest in touching your company and directing your game. We will be hands off. That is what they've said in the past when they've bought other Western companies. And so far, for many, many, many years, they have been true to their word. They have not touched other developers when they have made that same agreement with them. And I feel like whatever you think about their dealings in China and the way they play things in China should all be taken with a grain of salt, because it's a different market. They don't want the same things we do. The different things are acceptable there that aren't acceptable here, and vice versa. So a lot of people focus on what they do in China and be like, but this isn't right, but it actually is fine for them, or it's got nothing to do with us. We don't understand that market. They have never, and have said they will never, fuck with the Western developers that they've bought and made that agreement with. And I feel like the fact that they've been doing it now for 7, 8, 10 years, something like that, with several Western developers, and have stayed true to their word, should afford them a level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Goodwill. Like, they have had goodwill, and we should trust that they will continue to do so. They've done nothing in many, many, many years to indicate that they would break that deal. We develop almost all features for international and some. Yeah, Mebs. I did read that bit.
And I think I've heard the bulk of the argument at this point. I'm going to go take a shower. I'll be back shortly.
Yep. So it's pay to win over in China then? Somewhat, yes, but it's important to understand that pretty much every successful game is, and that is what the Chinese market wants. That's what they want. To bring a game in exactly how we have it would be the equivalent of bringing over a massive pay-to-win from China and not altering it for us. Like, if you just brought a massive pay-to-win game that's huge in China and brought it over here to us, it would flop and fall over, because we'd be, oh, pay to win, go fuck yourself, not interested, what a shit game, money hungry grabbing bastards. We wouldn't like it. That's the same thing. When you bring something that has no ability to do pay to win over into the Chinese market, it flops. Tencent knows what they're doing in the Chinese market. They always want full control over the Chinese version of everything they've bought. And they already had that with PoE. Look how fast Battlefront 2 flopped, and Battlefront 2 wasn't even nearly as pay to win as Chinese game. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, we've seen that very recently with Battlefront 2. EA had a lot of pay-to-win things in there. That game did not have enough pay-to-win in it. Excuse me. Did not have enough pay-to-win in it for the Chinese market. Okay? It didn't have enough. It flopped here in seconds because of it. So it's very important to understand the entirely different market that we do not understand. Okay, so whatever it is that they do with their games in China, shouldn't have any impact on how we feel about them as a company or how we feel about them being the ones that bought GGG, basically. We can still be upset that they sold GGG, but we shouldn't be upset about what they do in China with things. It's a different market we do not understand. GGG jumping ship before D4. First of all, they're not even working on D4. And even if they were, Blizzard isn't the kind of company that can do anything as good as GGG right now, in my opinion. What most people's fear is when a foreign company takes over, try to keep profit without really thinking about the player experience. Trust and step up. Yes, and Men Gangster, that is something that, like, I understand that that's a legitimate concern, and I understand why it's a concern. It has happened in other games when other people have bought, when other companies rather have bought other games, they have done those sort of things. And Tencent themselves have done those sort of things with titles that they have bought and taken over. But it's important to understand that there's a large difference between that version of a buyout and what they did with GGG. What they did with GGG is the same as what they did to League of Legends, which is they bought a majority stake, they helped fund it and made it huge, but they never got their hands into the development of the game. They just left it. They left the Riot to run it how they were running it, but with more money. Is another company going to buy PoE? Not going to, already has. Why are people freaking out? Two already involved and we went through this. Tencent owned 90% of Riot Games before hit beta. Not before, during. I'm pretty sure it was during the beta that they bought out most of Riot Games. But either way, they kept their hands off it. They bought into it to help. They saw an opportunity for profit and good people who knew what they were doing, and they funded and invested in Riot Games. They did not fuck with the development of the game. They left it to Riot, and it succeeded in part because of all the extra funding they had. Now, what we hope and what we should assume and what they all deserve the benefit of the doubt is that the same thing will happen here. They have bought out a large part of Grinding Gear games. What we want, what we expect, and what we should give goodwill to is that both companies will act the way they always have in the past. Tencent will fund and help, but leave GGG alone to do what they think is best. GGG has never fucked us before. They have always been a company that acts with goodwill and is open and honest with us. They also deserve the benefit of the doubt. Both companies deserve to just be left to do their thing and trusted. Yes, it's something we should all be aware of. And if a year or 2 years or 3 years down the track, something does start to change in the way that they add something that is pay to win, or they start trying to sign us up to other Tencent things or things like that, if those things start to happen, then I'm wrong, I'm shocked, and I'll be the first one to jump ship when that happens. But I don't think it will, And I don't think Chris would have allowed that to happen. Don't leave GGG alone with that high of a company. Don't be fooled. Well, why not? They have in the past, Moxu. This is not the first company they have bought a massive stake in, given a lot of money, and then left. They've been doing it for years. Why would it be any different with GGG? I have a question. Do you think some by GGG actually put on ExileCon? No, they could already afford ExileCon. They were already doing that. True, Muzz. They won't necessarily leave GGG alone because they need to interact with GGG in the same way they have been for the last however many months the Chinese server has existed.
I'm back.
Welcome back. To be honest, there's no reason for people to freak out. GGG has always been upfront with us. Yes, they have. And Tencent doesn't have the ability to make a game this good. Or even in this market. This is the first ARPG they even own. They didn't and don't really know how to deal with this game. And to be honest, they don't, and they've admitted they don't know how to deal with the Western market. They already know that's a problem for them. Why would they come over and get involved and stick their fingers in something that was working well and fuck it now that it's their profit margin on the line? It doesn't even make sense. It makes way more sense to leave them alone and keep getting the new content they make, and now hopefully even more, even better, even more well polished content, because they're now funded a bit, and porting it all over to their Chinese realm and making even more money over there. Like it doesn't even make financial sense for them to get involved.
Yep, which is exactly what Trash just said as well.
It was already supermassive enough for them to buy it out. Yep.
And roughly what Musgrove said.
Start missing. Chris has already mentioned the Chinese realm has stuff we will never ever get on the Western region. Yeah. When everyone threw up their arms because the Chinese version got pay to be able to res your hardcore character, and Reddit, or English-speaking Reddit, got hold of that information and lost their fucking mind because they don't understand that it's a different market and that it's not. That was needed over there and it will never be needed over here. We would shit on that and hate the idea. They would lose tons of customers and business if they did that. I want to try. That wouldn't make sense from a business standpoint, Hash, unless they had the big competitor to PoE and they were trying to buy out and ruin their competition, which isn't the case. TLDR says some good points from Chris in there. Yeah, I've seen that. That's from the New Zealand Herald. Saw that, any? Well, thank you, HK. Also, what the fuck? So I duplicated chat on my second stream, right? So that I could open links. So I'm just going to drag that back on real quick. All I did was duplicate the window, and HK is a different color in each screen.
HK hasn't fixed his color, he's just got random color. Because I'm seeing a different color to both of those.
Right, okay.
And same as Omega Chair, right? If you don't pick a color for your account, it just randoms every time you see it.
Right, okay. I need to pick a color for Omega Chair then.
Yes, yes, you do.
Who decides what hardcore is at all? How do we know the game won't move towards a more casual audience where resurrect tokens are wanted? First, so two things with that. One, resurrect tokens aren't wanted. In the entire Western community of hardcore, that is not it. And who decides is still Chris Wilson. The same person who's been deciding for the last 10 years, or however long it is still the same person making all of the decisions going forward. The only difference being he now has one more job to do because he has to report his the company's profit margin each month, quarter, year, whatever the fuck it is, to Tencent. So he's got one more job to do than he had before. But he's still the one making all of the decisions. And also, that's what softcore's for here. If that doesn't make any, we would just go the casual people in Western gaming. They just don't play hardcore.
Bingo. Give that man a medal.
Also, what happens on the China realm doesn't affect me at all, is therefore irrelevant. Not quite entirely true. The Chinese realm wanted and pushed very hard for development of a guild bank log just recently, and have been trialing it on the Chinese servers. And once it is trialed and successful and bugs are fixed on it on the Chinese server, Chris already said they intend to port that from the Chinese version back over to us. So there are some things that will come back, things like that would work really well in our market as well. When Tencent fixes and develops it, they will bring it back over.
That's the third last question on the post that you've got open.
Is it?
Will the Chinese version get some features ahead of the international one? We develop almost all features on the international version, but sometimes Tencent will request features that they want to try in the Chinese version that we don't plan to roll into the international version. If these features turn out to be a really good fit for both versions, then we of course port them back into the international version.
There we go.
The guild log is a particular recent example of that, or current example of that.
Agreed. Chris's position in the company is subject to change without a minority share. Okay. So two things. One, that's not true. And two, even if it was true, there's no reason to assume the worst from people who have always given us their best. That's a very negative look that doesn't have a good reason to be. Neverhood, thank you very much for the follow. Also, holy shit, this retains viewers. That's the first time I looked.
Yep. Just before, when you took a quick break, just before we started, you had 77 viewers. You double that now.
Yeah. This is apparently a discussion everybody wants to have. Right, so back to that. Chris's position in the company subject to change without a minority share. Granted, I haven't seen the documents that were signed, but I cannot imagine a world in which Chris Wilson didn't put that in the fucking contract, that they couldn't just oust him and take over or get rid of him. There's not what world would you let your brainchild go without the power to hold on to it? He made the decision. He signed the shit. There's no way. It wouldn't make any sense Just because they own a majority share doesn't mean they can just break the agreements they've made. They had to sign documents to buy it, and there's no way he wouldn't have had something in there to make sure he could stay in charge until such time as he chose to retire. When they give you shitloads of cash, Reservoir, have you ever seen an interview with Chris Wilson? I promise you, he cares way, way less about shitloads of cash than he does about this game and his company and his employees.
All the people living for Poe.
He is not that kind of human being. I said more. I support Cotton Candy Randy. I saw, I want to say at least 40% of the responses to the Xbox launch looked exactly like that sentence. And then we got the DX11 client and so many improvements because of it, and the game on the computer got so much better because of it, and everyone forgot it happened and moved on with their life and kept buying supporter packs because, oh, actually, turns out that was a really, really good move for company. Sneaking suspicion this is going to work out the same way? But they still owned the game? I mean, they still own the game now. GGG still owns Path of Exile. They still own, manage, and exclusively run Path of Exile. A friend of mine thinks that Uber is hearing being hard as she is bad game design. Well, maybe your buddy's just shit at games. And that's their problem.
There's hard content in the game, bad game design.
Right. But this will have minimal impact after. Yeah, that's. I am. Lol. I am post. I don't know how to say that word or where the capitalization is supposed to be. But yeah.
Where?
I am
Oh, right. Lamp post, lol.
Oh my god, it's lamp.
But it took me a moment as well.
Fuck. Yeah, okay. Lick is too hard, shit game.
You're contradicting yourself, Spicy Cheesy.
Yeah, what?
I still want GGG and I love those guys, but prior to that, that's it. I'm quitting PoE. Question mark.
Well, what that is that's a knee-jerk response, is what that is. I love them, but I hate this, and I'm gonna throw a tantrum. Tomorrow you'll be over the tantrum. Probably not tomorrow, but in that metaphor, it worked really well. Okay, again, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Just because you buy an 80% share in something doesn't actually mean you can do whatever you want. That's up to individual contracts, which we haven't seen. You can buy a 99% share in a company and not have any creative license within that company. That's up to the individual contract. Just because you own a part or a majority part of something doesn't mean you're allowed to oust the people who ran it or take over or do whatever. That is always up to the individual contract, which we haven't seen, and I cannot imagine. We don't like any copypasters here. They're annoying and they just clog up chat when we're trying to have conversations.
Why would you have copy pasta when you can have spaghetti bolognese?
Right? PoE and GGG will, surely though. Honestly, I don't think it will have a notable impact on how many supporter packs are bought. I honestly don't. There will be a few outliers that won't buy stuff, but in the large scheme of things, I don't think it'll have a lasting effect. I appreciate your positivity, but play devil's advocate for a minute. Can you see anything going wrong? Is there a possibility for anything to go wrong? Yes. Yes. They bought a large enough stake in the company that if they really, really wanted to, which we've had no indication they would ever do, and they haven't done to any of the other companies they bought, but is it possible that they could get their hands into it and fuck stuff up? Yes. It is. It is possible. It is something that we should probably keep an eye out for over the coming years.
And is absolutely 100% something Chris Wilson and the others will be keeping an eye out for over the coming years.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether each of us as individual consumers do or don't.
Yeah. I do think I can promise you that debate has happened in Chris Wilson's head and out of his mouth with other people as well. Will they do that? Will they not? I do not believe they will. They have shown us a history of not interfering, and that's great. And it wouldn't make financial sense for them to interfere. So it's in everyone's best interest that it works out exactly how we want it to go. But is it possible? Yes. It is possible they could do it. There is a possibility there now that they could get their hands in and screw stuff up, and there was no possibility that someone else could do that before. But there was also only us as a player base funding GGG before, and now they've got a $580 billion company backing them. Granted, they're probably not going to get $580 billion, but there is a very large, very wealthy corporation now able to help fund them. Which means we should and probably will be able to get a lot of things done. But all of those things done are going to be things Chris Wilson wants to do. It's his say and his direction for the game because he's still running it. Shame for the GGG employees who thought they might get a share in the company. I don't believe any of them thought they might get a share in the company, since if you're going to get a share in the company, that would be written into your contracts. And Chris Wilson wouldn't...
For a company, I don't expect to get a share in it.
Yeah, and Chris Wilson wouldn't fuck people like that. Like, if he promised people shares, they would have shares. He would not have gone back on things like that. That is not in his nature. And yeah, I've never had shares in any of the companies I've fucking worked in. What kind of work do you do? Jesus.
But at least you're admitting it's sour blue gum, which puts you ahead of most of the other kneyjerk reactions.
It does put you, and it's okay to be a little bit upset and feel a little bit betrayed. Like, I mean, I wish they didn't do it. I'm happy with them crawling ahead as an indie developer. I would rather they stayed like that. But that's just because of that. I really liked the feeling of being super passionate about this little indie game and this little company in New Zealand, and yeah, that's great, that little feeling, and that's somewhat hampered by this, but I can see how it's a really, really good move for the game and for the company, and so yeah. Still gonna go on Magic the Gathering cards. No, Bulldog. I know that was a joke, but just in case, no. Because again, Tencent doesn't own Path of Exile. I guess they sort of do by proxy, but no. GGG still runs it, GGG still owns it. Tencent has nothing to do with the Western version of Path of Exile. Just in case anyone was wondering, or at least nothing more than they did 6 months ago when they were interacting with GGG to port over to the Chinese.
What they have to do with the international version of PoE is funding it and then later profiting from it. That's it. Money goes in, more money comes out later.
No, Loranic. You just said revenue, and that's a very, very important distinction to make. If Tencent took 80% of the revenue, the company would be broke in a month. Okay? We're talking about company profit. And I made this point at the beginning, and we're going to make it again. A company's profit, now I haven't seen GGG's reports, but on average, a good, successful company makes 2 to 5% profit. That means, on average, what? $3 out of every $100 spent is actual profit. Tencent is taking 80% of that $3. If you spend $100 on them, Tencent is getting whatever 80% of like $3.50 is on average, or something to those numbers. Like, so it's not most of the a very, very large percentage of what you give GGG or what you buy your supporter packs and whatnot is still going to go to the GGG employees, the servers, back into the game for future development, back into maintaining and updating things and hiring new staff and putting on events like ExileCon. That is still the sort of thing that will happen with 95% of your money. Paying $1,000 a day for servers for bloody battle royale shit so that we can enjoy it and goof around. This is Xbox drama all over again. Oh my god, I'm so done. And then just continue playing. That's... yeah.
But Why listen to what a streamer means? Of course they will defend it with all they got. It is a part of their income, and for some it is all their income. So I don't think Balor is defending this with all he's got. And it certainly doesn't have anything to do with the fact that he's getting income from it.
Because I'm getting sweet fuck all income from it to start with.
Yes, you're getting a little bit, but
Not enough to live.
Income. You're defending it because you've looked at some facts and done some research and thought about it. Mainly that last bit, which is surprising for me that you've done that.
We haven't seen the contracts. We don't know if GGG will be a separate company or yes, we do. We haven't seen the contract, but yes, we do. Yes, we do know that they will be a separate company. It's on my screen right now. I don't know which part. Hang on, let me find it. Was it this one or was it the other post?
The third question is Grinding Games becoming part of Tencent?
Grinding Gear Games is still an independently run company in New Zealand. All of its developers still work for Grinding Gear Games and have not become Tencent employees. The founders, Chris, Jonathan and Eric, are still running the company, just like we have been for the last 11 years. Going forward, we have a financial reporting obligation to Tencent, and this will have minimal impact on our philosophy and operations. So we do know that it is still a separate company, and the same people are still running it. Still run it until Tencent doesn't want them to because they own 80%. Cotton Candy Randy, before they bought it, Chris could have got hit by a bus and died and then suddenly not been running the company anymore. Why would you worry about things like that? Yes, it could happen. It's never happened in the past. Tencent has never done that to any of the other companies that they've bought in similar fashions. And Chris Wilson and GGG would never have signed away thinking that that was going to happen. Everyone on both sides of that has shown us nothing but correct behavior. Why assume the worst? What we do know, however, is that 90% of Reddit only read the first sentence in that post and then freaked out. True. Well, I've been here from the beginning. If it turns pay to win, I will leave. And I'll look forward to seeing GG getting more resources and improvement. Disco, if it turns pay to win, I will leave.
Culture will leave.
If it turns pay to win, I will leave. As well as 80 to 90% of the entire population of the game, and the game will die. Which is why that won't happen.
Part of the game will thrive, but
yeah,
the international side.
The international side will just be gone if it goes pay to win, which Chris knows, because he hates pay to win games as much as the rest of us, so he would never let happen. I think even Tencent know that pay to win international when pay to win they would die. Of course they do. Like there granted there aren't many other. If GGG went pay to win, I would end up just playing a different game. Like I'm just not going to. And it's fine. It's fine to still be wary, and it's good to still be wary. You should be aware that this has happened, and it should sit in the back of your mind every 6 months or so. Think about it. Have they fucked us? No, continue living your life. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the amount Chris loves this game so much more than everyone else, he would never have He would never have signed up his brain baby to be killed. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, this is not a lobotomy.
Yeah. This is what the players want to hear is Tencent can't touch us. Mr. Burnham, see you get written in stone, no contract is shown us. Right, okay, so unless anyone's got any other points to bring up that haven't been touched on already, I'm going to end my local recording because that's going up on YouTube, which is why we got our copyright-free music. That doesn't mean we have to stop the conversation, but any other big points before I end it?
I think that's good.
Right, lovely. Right, I will put that up later. And by the way, I'm definitely going to call it my 10 cents.
Of course.
Because how do you not? Every video that goes up about this should be named my 10 cents.
My 10 cents on 10
10
cents.
cents. Yeah. There's no way it doesn't get labelled that. What?
Did you say that before or after the recording ended?
After.
Okay.
There's no way I don't name it that. Downvoting straight away. No, it's too good. It's too good. I will be surprised. I will be so surprised if my video is the only one that goes up with that name. I'll be shocked. It's too good of a pun to pass up. Alright. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Behave yourselves, people.
Yep, I'm watching you for copy pasta.
I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back.
Yeah, welcome back. I'm gonna go grab some food, I think.
Yep. This discussion made me stay awake. There's no point in going to sleep now. It's 12:30. What time do you have to wake up, Zua? Should supporter packs become cheaper now? No, you were probably not here for the whole discussion. Like 95% as a conservative estimate, probably more, of the money spent in supporter packs will still be directly supporting GGG and their employees. That hasn't changed. Tencent is still, yes, Tencent is getting 80% of the profit, but there's a very large difference between revenue and profit. Supporter packs will still be directly supporting GGG. However, as with all things in the industry and in all things in the world, the most power you have as a consumer is with your wallet. If you don't agree with the move they've made, and that's how you feel, and this discussion or any other discussion you see doesn't change your mind, don't buy a supporter pack. You should vote with your wallet. If you really hate this and you're done with it, stop supporting it. That is what you should always do with every company you ever deal with. Too many angry divorced people on Reddit now. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to point everyone back to the amount of toxicity and anger that came from the community when we got the Xbox release. And I don't think anyone feels bad about the Xbox release now. They have since proven that it was not only a great business decision, but it was really, really good for the game. And I truly believe this will work out the same way. I do feel really bad for Chris, who's definitely receiving a lot of hate mail right now from people who don't understand. Or don't. Even if they do understand, just don't trust him. Like, he hasn't built up and earned enough goodwill with the community. Like, we just forget what he's been pouring his blood, sweat, and tears into for the last 11 years. And think he would just give all of that up for money. He would. It's not that. He's never been that kind of person. It's never been that kind of company. If it was just, they just wouldn't have released it for just money. The only reason he would accept an investment like this is because it's the best thing for the game. Alright. Well, I think I'm done with this part. Not that we necessarily have to stop talking about it. If he wanted to cash out bigger, he would have done it in this deal and sold a lot. Yeah, if he was done, he'd be done right now.